In this video, we're going to be going over spare shooting. A, why it's important. B, kind of like how to do it. Not necessarily how to do it, but some tips I give to bowlers when doing it, and kind of some aspects of how I go about my spare game. So one thing to start off this video with, I'm shooting at all of my spares two-handed. Now, all of the tips I'm going to have for this video will be used, you can use for both two-handed bowlers and one-handed bowlers. But I'm going to be going about my spares two-handed just because that's how I bowl, that's what I'm used to, that's what I'm normal with. So I'm going to take my spare ball. Now, I see a lot of people who just use a regular strike ball or reactive resin for spares. That's fine, that's dandy for you, not for me. Just because I bowl with a lot of rotations and a lot of revolutions and a lot of revs, I have to use a plastic spare ball. Tip 1, throw, and let me rephrase. Step 1, and I cannot emphasize this enough for all bowlers, one-handed, two-handed, I don't care how long you've been bowling for, shoot at your spares straight. What I mean by that is if I'm, for example, that gap in the lane from when I was trying to film this video in the first place is a 10 pin. You need to shoot at your 10 pins as straight as possible, because if you don't, all you're doing is you're giving the ball more room to miss. So I'm going to try to shoot that gap because I don't have a 10 pin because I already took it out. And see, that would have missed the 10 pin because I didn't throw it as straight as humanly possible. So, tip 1 for all of your spares, straight as you can. Do not hook at your spares unless, and I don't even want to say unless because I don't even do it. If you gutter and you have all 10 up, I guess that's fine in my opinion. But I still don't like hooking at my spares. It doesn't matter how many pins, in my personal opinion, are up there. If it's a spare, I grab my spare ball and I shoot at the spare. I'm not, oh, maybe if I throw my hammer, infamous, up this board and I try to get the ball to spin this way. No. Shoot at it straight. If you don't get it, tough cookies. Tip number 2. Consistency is key. Right? The best way to be consistent at any sport, especially bowling, two-handed, one-handed, three-handed, four-handed, I don't care if you come up with some new way of doing it. Awesome, good for you. Repetition. Repetition, 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 repetition. I don't care how many times I have to say it. Repeat your steps, repeat the process. Do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over again until you hammer it in place. You know how to make your spares. So unfortunately, I'm not able to set up a bunch of like wonky splits because I don't have that type of control. And see, I threw that ball almost not straight and I almost missed. But I don't have the control to say, okay, I want to have the 7-10 split and I'm going to try to throw at it as many times as possible. I don't have that ability because these machines, unfortunately, don't allow you to put specific pins down. I have yet to find a center that allows you to do that. So I'm just going to talk about how I make this spare. So for example, I'm shooting at a spare. I have old reliable spare ball. This ball has a special place in my heart, I'll tell you that. But for me, my objective, hit the pocket like I'd be throwing a strike, except I'm going to be throwing my spare ball. So I missed my mark a little bit. I wanted to be a little bit more inside the right part of the head pin, not necessarily taking the head pin out directly down the middle of the head pin, but it still got the spare. So when I go to do my spare practice, I always start off 10 pin, 10 pin, 10 pin, 10 pin, 10 pin, because that's the spare that I end up leaving the most. Oh, that was awful. Yeah, unfortunately, when you do spare practice, you do want to at least get a pin down. That'd be nice. But I was in my cradle and I sped up too much and the ball was wobbling all over the place. But my third tip for spares, and this goes directly into the whole shoot at your pins straight, make sure that you are lined up correctly when you shoot at your spares. What do I mean by line up correctly? Well, let's just say you're going for a 10 pin. You're not gonna land or stand on board 10 and try to hammer out the entire gutter to get the 10 pin. That's giving you the least room to get the spare and giving you the entire lane to miss. So when I shoot at my 10 pins, my most comfortable thing is I'm standing between first and second dot. I almost just fell over. First and second dot, and I am trying to glide the ball through the oil and to like board 5, which would cover the 10 pin. So what I mean by that, and this is why throwing at your spares straight is so important. See, because I missed, but the ball still went straight. I just missed my spot. And that's because I don't practice my spares enough to where I should. So even that, my spare game is not as consistent as it's supposed to be. So when I see spare like this, where you have the 1-2, I believe, or it's the 1-3, I think it's the 1-2. All I'm trying to do is put the ball in between the 2 pins. I'm not trying to bounce the head pin off the 2 pin, because I've done that before and I've ended up missing because I bounced it off too high. So all I'm doing is bouncing 1 pin, ball, splitting it right down the middle. If you shoot at your spins the correct way, you shoot at your spares straight, you take your time and you repeat the process over and over and over again, there's going to be a point in time where you find yourself having a hard time missing your spares. And that's when you know you are doing a good job. But even professionals make mistakes.
Single pin spare, misses it! He missed it!
And see, I got up the side of that ball, and let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that 10 pin wasn't there, I would have missed because I didn't have enough up the back, and I would have missed. So what I might try doing is taking a further step right, giving myself a little bit more room to play with. So for this spare, unlike the last spare, is I have a pin behind the head pin now. So how should I make this? You got a couple of options. You can do the same thing I just did and try to get the ball in between the 1 and 2 pin, but now you got to worry about that back pin. Now this is when I try to bounce the head pin into the second pin, and I let the ball take out the back pin. What I mean by that, and hopefully I execute, yeah, see, so I missed my spare, but that was a perfect example of what happens when you play too far over and your ball has too much deflection on the pins. So I'm gonna throw 1 or 2 more. I gotta get out of here though, because I see that they are oiling the lanes. When I do these spare practices, my objective is to just get 1 on each side. That's what I like to see, is 1 on each side. But that doesn't always end up happening. You get some weird breaks, weird leaves. So for this, similar to the last couple, I got a head pin. What am I doing? I'm just hammering the pocket with my spare ball. You want to be the right side. That's got a chance, come on. Yeah, so you hit the pocket and it just shoots the 4 pins everywhere. So I'm gonna throw probably like 2 or 3 more, just for the sake of me needing to get out of here, and this video probably already being like 20 minutes long. So just to kind of recap, your spare game will end up being the most important part of your game. There will be, and see, that's my goal. There's never a point in time where your spare game takes a step back in importance. It is always important, it is always necessary, and you always need to have a good spare game. Step number 2, or well, point number 2, shoot at your spares straight for the love of God. I am not going to not emphasize that. Shoot at your spares straight. So I am going into the 10th frame now. Score doesn't matter because that's not what we're here for. Step number 3, repeat the same process over and over and over and over and over and over again until you find your comfort zone with making your spares. For me, I know my weakest part of my spare game is the 10 pin. That's why for the past 45 minutes, I've been doing nothing but hammering the damn 10 pin over and over and over and over and over and over again until I feel like I've accomplished something. Oh, I just missed. Yep. Slid too far over. Well, I can't throw anymore because that was the end of my bowling. But like I said, make sure you shoot at your spares the right way. You consistently do the same thing. You're not changing anything about your spare game. You're playing the right part of the lane. Take your time, and you're throwing the right piece of equipment.